Welcome back, Chiefs Nation. It's that time. It's that lull, the low tide, the point where we have to start making predictions that you necessarily might not be ready to hear. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Matt Derek's going to help smooth it all out because I'm not going to sound that great. But today's going to be fun. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs. This is going to be a temporary show. Last one from this studio. This is an ending of an era here in Kansas City for me and this show. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. And as you know, this is my last day in this studio. You'll see something different next time. I don't know if it'll be cleaned up and ready yet, but it'll be different. That's for sure. It will not be the last time that you hear from Matt Derek, the editor-in-chief of ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, it's July. It's fun, right?
It is July. In theory, it's fun. This is this is it. I mean, this is the absolute nadir between, off-season workouts are behind us. There hasn't been, nothing much going on. Nothing really, going on right now. This is the absolute bottom of the offseason. The NFL has the only place the NFL has not yet figured out how to fill a calendar is the 4th of July week.
Right.
I'm sure
right,
maybe one day, but frankly, this is the week that everybody I know is on vacation. Everybody I know is in Iowa fishing, or they're in an island somewhere and not responding to text, or
yeah, Eric Fisher somewhere lost in the Upper Peninsula,
playing golf with Miles Teller or something. I can't keep track of everything, but I just know nobody's here. Nobody's doing their jobs right now except you and me.
My favorite definition of this, somebody said this to me the other day, and I can't remember the name of the roller coaster Worlds of Fun, if there still is one, but it's that you get over the first hill, right, and you're all excited. Now you're at the bottom, and then the click kicks in, and they're starting to haul you up that long hill to get to the big drop, right? We're at the click right now. There's nothing else going but row, we got to go up. And that's really where it goes from here, right? The thing that everybody's concerned about is the tracks are a little bit wiggly. I'm going to ride this metaphor for all it's worth. It might be creaking a little bit underneath us because teams are not doing anything, and the fans want them to do things. So the big question that I've gotten all 4th of July holiday, why isn't Orlando done yet? This is too tight. There's only 10 days left. How could he still be out there? And they need to hear from somebody besides me. Is there any reason for alarm in your mind with the Orlando Brown situation with the Chiefs right now on the 5th of July as we record this?
5th of July? No, there is no reason for alarm. I mean, I'm not even going into Orlando Brown watch mode until probably Sunday night. I mean, Monday's probably when I'll really start paying attention. If anything happens between, I would say now and really, the 11th, to me would be a surprise. Because as I've stated, right now is the dead period. It's not that it can't be that, hey, Brett Veach and people are exchanging text and phone calls. It certainly could have been happening over the last few weeks. It wouldn't surprise me if it did happen. But this is it. This is the dead period. This is the time when typically things don't get done. And things in the NFL do get done closer to deadlines. Orlando has a deadline on July 15th. That's next Friday. 10 more days away. A lot can happen in 10 days. And honestly, it's a pretty simple deal. I think the Chiefs and Orlando's camp generally know the parameters of if they're going to get a long-term deal done, what's going to look like. It's just a question of whether or not they're very far off on terms. But I think that we could probably right here hammer out a deal between Orlando and the Chiefs and probably be, pretty close, give or take a few million. It is what it is. So it's just a matter of getting down to it and actually, putting pen to paper and everything. At this point, the fact that we haven't heard about anybody trying to blow up negotiations or anything is good news. But I certainly didn't expect to hear any noise until probably the 10th or the 11th.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought as well. Like, everybody enjoys this holiday. This is a big holiday in the NFL. This is the last of your vacation time, right? If you've been in a situation with either an injury or you just were burnt out from the season or whatever, you've worked out, but you had to take a little bit of time. This was your last vacation breath. So next week, maybe the tail end of this week, players start getting back into shape. They start running a little bit. There's a conditioning test that is on the horizon, right? So for my experience training guys, this is when they start to kind of wake up. Is that what you feel is true with the executives as well?
I mean, it really is. I mean, this is remember, I mean, from just a workload standpoint, if you work in an NFL front office, this week is pretty much your last week of vacation until the end of your season. And even then, I mean, once your season's over, you might get a couple of days off at the end of the season to just take your breath, but then you've got to go straight into the draft. So, if you work in an NFL front office, I mean, this is your final time off. And honestly, I mean, almost any job in the NFL, this is your final time off until the regular season. It's, hey, yeah, this is the week that the equipment managers have been working on packing up for training camp, for the last couple of weeks. So, but they're going to start hitting it hard now. Now's when you start loading the pallets and you get the footballs and the helmets get shipped in and you're getting all that hammered away. So, hey, some of those folks are inside the building now and doing some work, but a lot of people are taking some time off. And it's not just, I mean, remember, getting a deal done, it's not just Brett Veach and Orlando Brown's agent that get together a deal. I mean, you got to have somebody in human resources and you got to have your salary cap people. I mean, Brant Dillis is going to be involved in that. I mean, Chris Shea is going to be involved. I mean, there's not just one or two people that put together these deals. So, I mean, that's why I certainly didn't expect anything done close to the deadline. And typically the way that these, franchise deals are done, maybe they get done, well ahead of the deadline, like a David Njoku who gets way overpaid and would be crazy not to sign the deal. Mm-hmm. But most of the guys in Orlando's situation doesn't get done till the 11th hour. So to me, there's nothing to worry about. And until maybe 3:01 Central Time next Friday after the deadline and nothing's done, then you can worry.
So it is 3:01 Central. Okay, good to know. Let's hope that they're not using a fax machine. We'll revisit that later. Now, before we get into the specifics of what else needs to happen, as the big domino is Orlando Brown, let me tell you about our friends from Built Bar because they have a special coming back. The Coconut Brownie Chunk is back for camp season. You can order it here starting today. It's invented for all of you that are really like coconut freaks, kind of like I am. This is my favorite flavor that they make, and we've been through years and years of all of their types of flavors. They have a new one, too, that's now the fluff type that's based on coconut marshmallow. Imagine that. I haven't gotten a piece of it yet, but I will very, very soon. So stop drooling. Go over there and order some because you know you want them. They're a perfect meal replacement. The players don't need protein bars. They need recovery, electrolytes, etc. You guys need protein bars. So do I. Gets you through your day, can help you as a meal replacement or anything else that you need to get that protein that maybe you're not consuming in enough volume to help you get through your day. They are delicious too. They're covered in real chocolate, and that's why we love them so much. So go over to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off of your next order at Built.com with LOCKed15. Okay, so now I'm hungry, but besides that, we're going to be all right. Stocking up on carbs is probably something a lot of guys are getting ready for. I know there's always fans. I know there's always, the extra bed rolls to try to make the dorm beds better, but I don't remember seeing like Instapots or, little things that can do up some midnight pasta, but I'm guessing that there's some that sneak in there that I'm just not aware of. Does that sound crazy?
There might be a few who sneak in something like that. That's a good question. I've never seen that. But then again, I mean, hey, a lot of your, 22-year-old guys may not be too proficient in the kitchen yet, and you don't have Mitch there maybe to make up some ribs or something for you. But there's probably a few of the older guys who figure out how to sneak a little something in. But and you do, I mean, hey, it's camp in St. Joe. So everyone, you do get a couple of days to sneak away and sneak back to town. And, you can go out to eat and, the family can sneak in and, get you something. So, but then again, I mean, they take care of the guys at the training table pretty well there at the dorms.
Yeah, I have seen that as well. And it's always interesting to me because I know that there's dudes that are up at like, I guess not midnight, but 10 o'clock when you got to be up at 5 to be in meetings and whatever, but still that's a lot. And you need those calories. And it's about that need and replenishment because this is the marathon that's about to start. For rookies coming in, we got so much play out of the rookies last year. For this rookie class, I feel like there's even more pressure on them because the volume of snaps they have as a class are going to play. And this is really like a way that I think Andy does better than most coaches around the league of not burning everyone out, still getting something out of it. Most years I'm leaning the opposite direction where I'd like to see more more contact. I don't think they use all their contact days to their full effect, to tell you the truth. I think that kind of lingers into the regular season. What would you like to see Andy Reid change or adopt as a new strategy to kind of combat all these rookies in camp?
Yeah, it's interesting you kind of phrase it that way because, that's probably true to a degree, but Andy in his training camps really preaches more endurance and stamina building than anything else. So you're right. I mean, they probably do sacrifice. And honestly, I mean, he probably doesn't even keep the team out there for as much as they could. Now, it's the work that he does when they're out there. I mean, for Andy Reid, he feels like it's the situations and the moments. And that's what he's looking to try and create at training camp. That it's not just about, hitting guys as much as possible. It's not about, making these guys sweat as much as possible. It's about putting them in situations that, you get to kind of test them and learn about them and everything. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think Andy Reid's favorite day of the year is long drive day. When, he puts those players out there for 17, 18, 19 snaps in a row and doesn't pull anybody off the field unless they start puking, which does happen. But, I mean, hey, if he wanted to keep guys out there for, the full 4 hours mandated by, the CBA and just make them sweat in the heat, he could do that. There's some teams around the league that just do that. But Andy doesn't. I mean, he puts them in different situations. And again, I mean, I think that, he tries to put these players into situations. And I hear more about this, I think, from the Chiefs than from other players around the league and even guys who come to Kansas City and talk about it, that say Andy Reid's training camp is hard. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart, but they like it because you get something done and you get something that you can pull out of it. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've had, players talk to me in December and say, yeah, you know what? This game in December is why we did that long drive day back in St. Joe, was to prepare us for moments like this. And so, I mean, that's to me that's what Andy Reid tries. And I think he does really well at. I mean, he's adapting, he's changing some things. I mean, we saw it this offseason. I mean, they're making some changes that, they had to kind of adapt a little bit during the pandemic. And there were some things that they liked and that they're keeping with it, everything. And I'll be interested to see about training camp too. I mean, this is going to be the first training camp. Last year was even sort of still a little bit of a hybrid. I mean, as much as things were back to normal, there's still a few things that they had to tweak. I'll be interested to see, how much does stick around, because the one thing I have noticed that Andy has done over the last few years is that he has been cutting back the time that they spend on the field and just trying to make that time more productive. And I mean, it's hard to me. It's hard to argue with it.
Yeah. It's funny. The way that you put that reminds me of what I have seen over the years is that teaching time on the field seems to have shrunk. You're not going through individual drills as long for teaching technique, teaching assignment and alignment and those kind of things. There's more of that done in the meeting rooms. And I think Zoom has probably helped that. But for me, it's about Andy's operational tempo when he's on the field, no matter what the situation is, whether it's the long drives or the red zone periods or whatever it is. It's about the tempo of moving through as though you're on a standard 35-second clock in a ball game. And I think that that's really what pays off, while sacrificing the physicality maybe kind of, I think, bites them a little bit in early games. That operational tempo just keeps them moving. And that endurance factor that you used before, not only December, but into January and the playoffs. I think that shows up in the ability to win those games against the Bills with 13 seconds left, because you're not overwhelmed by the physicality or the emotional drain or how much volume you've been on the field. Does that make sense that far? Am I overreaching?
No, I don't think you're overreaching it. And see, and I've always seen it, kind of through a different lens. I mean, to me, and the last year was certainly the outlier to this. I mean, the Chiefs did, the last first 4 weeks of the season weren't as strong as they've had in recent years. They struggled last year a little bit out of the gate. And I think there's a point, to your point, that sometimes physically that they have certainly, I think haven't been necessarily the best team out of the gate early in the season. But the one area where I feel like that they've always been superior is in coaching. And I think that advantage was whittled down a little bit the last couple of years because of the pandemic regulations and restrictions, that they didn't get as much as that on-field teaching and off-field work. So the Chiefs maybe didn't have as much of an advantage in the first 4 weeks of the season as they have in most years. I'm wondering, this year, now that we've had, pretty much a full off season and Andy Reid's had an opportunity to work with his rookie class more, work with the newcomers more, really get a little bit more experience, even with the time that he let them have to themselves during the first phases, phase 3, certainly, I think they felt much more productive this year during that portion of the offseason than I think they have it for a couple of years. And maybe even the time that I've been covering the team since 2016. I mean, and that just seemed across the board that this group felt like that they were better, organized and maybe more efficient during the offseason. And to me, that's what the Chiefs sacrificed, maybe with physicality they've picked up and just having a, schematic edge. And I'm interested to see if maybe we see a little bit of return to that this year.
Well, I think a lot of that goes into winning and changing whatever you have to do to get the continuity. And they've made a couple of other changes. I want to talk about a couple of those right after this. So one thing, unlike we've seen in the past, is I note on the 4th of July weekend that we're still seeing footage of Patrick Mahomes throwing to his new receivers. Now, this is something they generally do in the pre-phase 3 part of the offseason. But wrapping it up, I'm impressed to see that Patrick's still willing to do that, especially because Skyy Moore, I think, is going to play a role in this offense. And he was injured during phase 2 and partially during phase 3. So it's important for him to get those reps. In my mind, that also tells me that it's important to Patrick and probably to Coach Reid as well. Does that mean that we should maybe expect a little bit more target share, rep share for Skyy right now out of the box in camp?
I mean, I'm pretty conservative on what I'm expecting out of Skyy Moore. And I say that, and it's going to sound a little bit like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth a little bit, because I'm going to talk about how just difficult it is for first-year receivers, whether they're rookies or veterans, to come into Andy Reid's system and thrive immediately. I mean, I've become pretty bullish on MVS over the last, month or so because of just what we've seen on the practice field. But I mean, I could still see it being a struggle for MVS and for Juju, kind of getting into it from the very beginning, because these guys are not going to be like, Tyreek Hill and DeMarcus Robinson and even, Byron Pringle last year, where you could plug any one of them into multiple roles and let them roll. I mean, I just don't know that those guys are going to be able to do it. And Skyy Moore in particular. I mean, Skyy Moore is not going to be a guy in year one that I think you feel comfortable just throwing out there in any role. I mean, I think he's going to have a specific niche in this offense. And that means he's not going to be out there, every single snap. And that's not a problem. It's just, it's just how quickly, can he master what he does so that he can get open? How quickly is Mahomes learning, what his speed is, what his abilities are, where he can make the little, turns to just, to carve out some open space for himself. I mean, those things take time to learn. And some of those you can't learn on a practice field in Texas. I mean, you can certainly get some timing down a little bit, but there's things you need to be able to go up against the defense. And that's what they're going to have to learn in St. Joe. And that's going to be the first time for these rookies. Remember, there's no contact. I mean, there's nothing. They say it's not full speed in OTAs, and it's not. I mean, it gets faster in training camp. So that's going to be, to a certain degree, if you're Skyy Moore, you've never been on an NFL field at full speed with pads yet. So that's the other reason why I say I'm tapping the brakes a little bit on Skyy Moore. I'm probably more bullish on MVS and Juju than maybe I should be. But I mean, I think there's opportunities, but hey, if you think that Skyy Moore is going to be an 800-yard receiver in year one, maybe he will. I don't think that, but I could be wrong.
It's unlikely, but it's still possible. You never know.
There's always a chance.
Let's dig a little deeper right? Let's dig a little deeper in that scenario, though. Do you see, with both MVS and Juju, even if you are more optimistic now than you are, say, in 6 weeks from now, is it a 1-for-1? Do you think that they're going to have a home position, given that two of the three starters, and I'm including Mecole Hardman with them, are new to the offense? Is Mecole most likely to line up the X more predominantly than he has in the past? Whereas I think he and Tyreek could move around a little bit more. Maybe it is about the learning for both those veterans as well. And does that put Mecole Hardman into the driver's seat in terms of targets?
Yeah, that's the curious thing to me is, just where do you kind of fit in Mecole and what do you get him doing? I mean, I think that, from just a style standpoint, he is going to be doing pretty much everything that Tyreek did the last few seasons. Now the question though is how much of the Chiefs offense still going to be built around that receiver? They're going to make some tweaks to the offense. I mean, Andy Reid's going to do some different things. I mean, MVS and Juju are going to be playing different roles than Tyreek was. And there's certainly those two guys, I think, are the only two guys that you probably trust being able to move through different roles because they've been in the NFL. They know a little bit, they're going to be able to pick these things up faster. But I still think it's tough to ask both those guys to be moving through three different positions. I mean, maybe it's only two spots that they're both, doing. Whereas, hey, McCole, you should probably be willing to ask him. But again, he's done that. And I feel like that McCole is probably best suited to play in that one role. And maybe it is the X. I mean, maybe that is, where he's best suited and where he's most comfortable. Let's see. But I mean, once again, I mean, to me, the offense isn't going to be built around that position as much because you don't have Tyreek anymore. You're going to be built to do multiple things. And so that's why, hey, McCole might have a very good season and maybe he's out there and maybe he has the exact same kind of playing time that Tyreek did. Maybe he's playing 95% of the snaps, but that doesn't mean the production is going to be the same because the offense is going to be different.
Right. Well, here's to hoping that we see a lot more 13 personnel just between you, me, and Mike Burton. I think that'll be great. Matt, thanks for clearing us up about where we are now. Now, the watch is on. We know that you'll have something when Orlando Brown has either an extension or the deadline passes. Folks, you can find all that at ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you want to watch. I'll have something for you if something breaks. Might be from a phone in the middle of the forest, but I'll have something for you. So, Matt, thank you for making this studio wrap up be your day here on the show and for all of your patience with me over the years.
A lot of good memories for you and everybody else from that studio. So I salute it one last time.
Cheers, man. Folks, enjoy your day. Matt will be back next week and maybe we'll have some news for you. You'd never quite know. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.